Right, I thought I'd make another Where Have I Been Since a music video to carry on that series, because still lots to talk about with that. Let me try and get this right where I can actually stand here, because we're not in the other house at the moment. But yeah, I still got the cap on because I still haven't booked an appointment at the hairdressers. I need to get that done. But yeah, so the cap's staying on for now anyway. So yeah, what did I want to talk about primarily? So obviously it's following on from the Where Have I Been Since the music, so last time it's basically me talking about things that I've been doing over the past decade, really, that have, well, helped me along the way, really. Do you know what I mean? Have helped me on a road to recovery, I suppose you could look at it like, I guess. Because certainly over the last 10 years for me, there's been certain things that have happened at certain points that have obviously had different effects, obviously, but some negative, but some really, really, really positive. And that's one that I wanted to talk about now. Something that's been really positive for me, especially over the last, what we're saying, 4 years, I think. Maybe 4 years I've been doing this. Couldn't tell you exactly how long, but anyway. So how should we get into this? So as I've said about myself and my own personality, and hyper focus and all that stuff, I get into stuff. You know what I mean? Whether it's guitar or making YouTube videos or whatever, I get into something and I focus on it for whatever reasons. Do you know what I mean? As I say, it's always instinct with me anyway. It's not necessarily planned, really. As I've said before, I'm often a passenger to my own, interests or whims, however you want to say that. But it's always been something that's helped me just have a focus, really. A diversion, I suppose. So one of those diversions, I suppose it's a slightly controversial subject, this really, but it's not in my mind, and I'm not going to turn it into one because this isn't the point of the conversation. But one of the turning points for me was getting into e-cigarettes as a means of stopping smoking so many real cigarettes, because I was smoking a lot, and especially when I started gardening with Dave, I got really into smoking then. Absolutely love smoking tabs. But it got to a point when, as I say, when I was gardening, it was one every half hour or something ridiculous. We were as bad as each other and we egged each other on. So it got to a point, and my other mate, another Dave actually, he was kind of thinking the same thing at the same time about stopping smoking, because, I could feel it. Partially it's one thing, and I can honestly say I've never felt the detriment of that, but certainly cigarettes, God, certainly felt the detriment of that. So one thing I did, let's try and cut this part relatively short. This part doesn't have to be too long. One thing I did was I thought, right, I'm going to try e-cigarettes. So me being me, I wanted to look into it, do you know what I mean, to find out all sorts about it, how it worked, because it looked very confusing to me. I tried to go online and find an e-cigarette to buy, and I was just like, well, there's so many different types. Why is there so many different types? So I fell into a wormhole, as I do, or a rabbit hole, however you want to look at it, and I started researching these things for my own benefit, to answer my own question, because I just became curious about it myself. I'd seen people doing it, blowing these huge clouds of vapor and stuff, and you're just like, what's going on there? I didn't understand it at all. So I started looking into it and reading about the different ways you could use e-cigarettes, and the different benefits they had in terms of stopping you smoking. Do you know what I mean? It's very difficult to talk about anything like that in terms of benefits, but obviously the benefits are, stopping smoking. So as I say, I'm not going to get into all the faux science that you see in the media and on the news regarding e-cigarettes that are out there to terrify people, and this is not a video about e-cigarettes. It's not a video about that. But anyway, I just don't want people who don't know what they're talking about sending me messages saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be using e-cigarettes" and stuff like that, because that will not make me happy, because I've done a lot of research into these things. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not going to get into it. Like I say, I'm not getting into it. The point being, though, is whatever the dangers are, I guarantee you they're going to be lower than smoking. But anyway, that's just my personal view on it. And right, okay, so let's get into what I'm actually talking about. So getting into e-cigarettes, I got into it, I researched it, and then, like I do, I just started buying different ones, because I read about them all and what they did. So I bought a load of different ones, and I stopped smoking straight away. I stopped smoking, which obviously was brilliant. So as I fell deeper and deeper into that rabbit hole, this is something else that I do. Whenever I get into something like that, I'll go find a shop with a person who runs it that I like, and basically say, I'll buy my stuff off you, sort me out, a decent price. Do you know what I mean? Because when I get into stuff, I do get into it and buy loads of it. I just like it. I don't care what anyone thinks about that. Do you know what I mean? It's not like a materialistic attitude in the slightest. It's just how my ADHD brain works, like a magpie. I like little toys and stuff. Do you know what I mean? So that's where that came from. So anyway, I went to a few different shops, and whatever. This was always my problem with e-cigarette shops. The majority of people who run them know nothing. They don't know what they're talking about, which has always made me laugh. So anyway, I went to a shop in Wetherby, on Wetherby Main Street, and I started going there sort of every Saturday, just buying new vapes, new e-cigarettes and stuff. Because like I said, at the time I was really into it, because it helped me stop smoking, and I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? I enjoyed it. So I started going to the shop in Wetherby, and I started getting to know the owner, Mia, who's a really, really lovely bloke. All the time in the world for Mia. He's an absolute gem. So yeah, it's the vape centre in Wetherby, where I started going, and very quickly after I started going, Mia actually offered me a job, because he basically turned around and said, "You know quite a lot about these things, don't you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, Ended up just reading about them for months and months on end, because like I said, I do that with everything. I did it with fish tanks, computers, all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to get into, photography. I'm not going to get into all my hobbies over the years. But yeah, so I did know a lot about it. A lot more than a lot of people. And the thing about Mia is he's a brilliant salesman, an absolute brilliant salesman. But, he'll even admitted himself that I had sort of more technical knowledge. And, he saw a lot of benefit to having me in the shop. So at first I was like, whoa. Well, to be honest, the thing about it was me and my state at that time, and how I viewed myself, and how I kind of imagined that others viewed me. It was terrifying, that for me. It was terrible, but I mean, I loved it. When he turned around and said, I'd loved it to come and work in this shop, I loved it. You know what I mean? That to me at that time was such a massive confidence boost. Dave, David McMaster of Hedges and Lawns, whatever his name is, he's on here. But he gave me a big confidence boost by, letting me work with him. Even though I was good at what I do, but you know what I mean? Like, my personality and stuff comes with drawbacks, let's say. And that's one thing that worried me about working in the shop, my personality drawbacks. But anyway, the fact that Mia turned around and offered me this job, that did a lot for me. Did a lot for me personally, and as I say, in terms of how I view myself, and how my ego is structured. And I don't mean ego, obviously, ego is a word that refers to how you view yourself, and it can be healthy to have the proportionate amount of ego. I'm not talking about being egotistical, because that's certainly not what I've been over these last 10 years, trust me. But so it just gave me a real confidence boost, did that, a massive, massive confidence boost. But at the same time, I instantly thought, no, I can't do that, because I've historically struggled dealing with people. And to an extent that reared its head in the band a lot, because obviously I had to coexist and get on with 3 other people, but then when you bring the managers into it, quite a few other people. And I often felt alienated through my own behaviour, which I could never help, really. But yeah, so yeah, that was difficult for me. Quite a lot in the band actually. I'd do things and people would react to it, and I'd feel very, I don't know, judged, I guess is the word. Judged and pushed out and stuff, but I'm willing to accept that a lot of that was possibly in my mind. More than willing to accept that. Although I'm sure other people are more than willing to accept that the way they responded to me over the years might not necessarily have been the healthiest. I'm going down a different track here. Right, anyway, so, you know, I thought me working in this shop, whilst I do know all this stuff, you know, what if I snap? Because I do snap. And I liked Mir so much and respected him so much for offering me this job. You know, like, it's not like an executive position or anything like that. It was just working in a vape shop. Do you know what I mean? Which, you know, I'm not saying that. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to give you context on the extent of my reaction to it. Do you know what I mean? And why I felt so positive about it, but yet at the same time quite scared about it. But yeah, so I mean, I was in there so much anyway that what I kind of thought was, and I think Mia thought the same thing, was, you know, I were in there most Saturdays and most Sundays, and I started dealing with people and offering people advice, which is actually why he offered me the job in the first place, because he'd seen that, you know, because Mia had so many customers, because he's so good at, you know, always stocks the right stuff and great at selling stuff. He had so many customers, he struggled on his own, so when there were queues of people, I'd often just say, you know, do you need any help with that? And often I'd know exactly what to sort them out with when they asked, and all I had to say with Mia, where's that? And that just needs ringing through because he's bought that. Because and that's the thing, especially about me, is when I enjoy something and when I'm enthusiastic about it, I can sell it. Do you know what I mean? I don't even have to try. And to my mind, that's the hardest thing about being like a salesman. Not that I've ever seen myself as that, but a true salesman, if you believe and you've got a real passion for it, there's no effort. You know, there's no effort. I will talk all day in the face of someone who wants to listen, who wants to learn, who wants the benefit of my experience and the benefit of my knowledge. I'll talk all day to them. I've got no problem with that. Do you know what I mean? So when people come into the shop and were engaging with me, the right sort of customers, I was absolutely loving it and thriving on it, because here I am. I hadn't really left the house that much for a while, a lot of years. I did leave the house, but do you know what I mean? Not with a view to interacting with people, really. Only a very small group of people, but interact, you know, in a situation where anyone can just walk off the street at any moment and you've got to, you know, deal with them. And is that dust on my cap? I don't care, it probably is. Where you've got to deal with them and be respectful and pleasant and stuff like that. They're all things that you might find it hard to believe in terms of what you all think about me, but, well, no, they're not things that I struggle with. I struggle with those if I don't get it back. Do you know what I mean? I'm the type that I'll be your best friend, honestly, anyone's best friend. If they've got time for me and I can see it, then I'll be your best friend. You know, if you give me negativity or I feel judged or anything like that, I'll snap you. Do you know what I mean? That's just kind of how I've been over the years. But I'm the loveliest guy you'll ever meet, but at the same time, if I think that you're not respecting me, I'm sure anyone's like that, you know, no one's going to take lack of respect. But it's just a little bit difficult when you're in, it was Mia's shop, Mia owned the shop, and it was a bit like working with Dave's business, and I'm effectively representing Dave's business. I can't go around, you know, damaging people. Not that I want to, but sometimes, you know, everyone knows, sometimes it's just like, well, this is only going to go one way. But that's what I loved about Dave, is that that's never bothered him. Do you know what I mean? He's never gone, oh, can't work with me, mate, because, you know, you're a bit nuts or whatever. Do you know what I mean? He's never done that. He's just been like, you go do that garden, mate, just get yourself away from this situation. Which is brilliant for me, because it meant that I could come to work without fear of, oh, I'm going to do something that's going to get me sacked. You know what I mean? Because so many people over the years have been like, well, you know, you need to work on that, you need to curb that behaviour. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life, is that, you know what I mean? and it's naive, it's patronising, it's condescending, it's arrogant. It's a myriad of things, really. You know, don't ever dare say that to me unless you live in my brain, please. But yeah, so anyway, I decided to take the job at the vape centre. Do you know what I mean? And I was working 5 days a week gardening with Dave. And when Mia asked me, you know, he said, "Will you come work for me?" And I said, well, I explained all the stuff about me being a bit apprehensive about it. Although Mia doesn't like really long texts. It's funny as all, honestly. You know, he asked me, and I must have sent him a WhatsApp thing that were 1 million pages long. And it was funny. He's just like, "Mate, honestly, don't send me texts that long." Do you know? It's like, oh, all right, sorry, I didn't realise that you didn't like reading. But honestly, you know, some people don't like reading really long texts. But anyway, I explained to him that it was a bit complicated because I'd agreed to work with Dave. And I'm the sort of person, if I agree to do something, I'll do it. And I worked with Dave for 6 years, and I'm still doing it now. Not as much as I was, obviously, but I'm still doing it now. Because I agreed to help him, because he's my friend, do you know what I mean? I certainly, you know, very quickly became my friend after I started working with him. You know, when I started working with him originally, it was only a little bit. We were only doing a couple of days, but, you know, then he sort of said, "Do you want to do it more often?" And I was like, "Yeah," do you know what I mean? And it was good for me though. I mean, that's a separate video in itself, really, but that was so good for me. It gave me structure, it gave me so much, and that gave me confidence in myself that I had a job. Do you know what I mean? Fair enough, you know, well, it depends how you view jobs, but anyway, I felt part of something. Do you know what I mean? Working with Dave, part of, you know, a gardening business that made people's gardens look absolutely mint. Do you know what I mean? Because we're good at his jobs. Yeah, where have I gone? Sorry, one sec. I just drifted off there. Yeah, part of something, yeah. Oh yeah, so we're doing 5 days a week with Dave. So I said to Mia, well, I'm doing 5 days a week with Dave, but do you know what I mean? I really like the idea of working in your shop. It seems like a challenge to me. And I remember talking to a few people about it, and they were like, "It's just working in the shop, mate." And it's like, yeah, but that is a massive challenge for me with how I view my own problems and how I view my own abilities to deal with stuff. And I can tell you now, I was wrong about a lot of it. But anyway, yeah, people said to me, it's not a big deal, but it was a big deal to me, was taking that job. So I worked Saturday and Sunday in the vape shop. So I did 5 days a week gardening, and I did Saturday and Sunday in the vape shop, and I did that every week for, what, 3 years? I think I did that. I think I worked 7 days a week for 3 years, did I? But it didn't feel like working 7 days a week, because like I say, with me and Dave, it's just a laugh. We crack on and we do brilliant work and we have a great laugh, which is why it's amazing. And I couldn't do that job if I didn't like Dave, do you know what I mean? Because like my personality, I can't spend time with people that don't enjoy the company. I can't do it. So yeah, I worked 7 days a week, but I enjoyed it. So it was funny, really, because early on in the vape shop, I very much eased myself into that because I found it quite alien. And Mia often joked, do you know what I mean? When people are like, "Oh, is this your new lad working for you?" Mia would be like, "Well, yeah, but you don't really do much work." But then I'd stand up and sell, someone a £150 lost vape mod or something like that. But anyway, I'm not listening about vapes. But so, I eased myself into that. Right. So when I first started going into that shop, one of the first people I met was Danny Clark, who actually runs the York vape centre now. And, Danny Clark is a brilliant lad, absolutely brilliant. I got all the time in the world for Danny, because he was, I think that was one of the first people I sort of met in there. And Danny, when you meet Danny, he can be a little bit, I don't know, you could think, does this lad like me? Or is he, you know what I mean? I'm not sure here. But when you work Danny out, you realise how much of a nice lad he is. Brilliant lad to spend time with and absolutely hilarious. And I do miss that now, because I don't work in the vape shop anymore. But, and when Danny went to run the York shop, because Danny used to come in every Saturday, and it became like a family in that vape shop, and I'll get onto that. But Danny would come in every Saturday, and as soon as Danny would come in, I'd feel at home. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yes! Do you know what I mean? Like, because I was always nervous about people coming in, because Mia were like, you know, go deal with them, and I was like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like a 15-year-old kid or something. I was 36, for God's sake. Or how old? 35, 34 when I started there. Do you know what I mean? But that's what I am. That's who I was. Well, it's not what I am now. You know, I had no confidence. I had no self-esteem for various reasons. But I've slowly built that back up over the years, thanks to quite a few. Thanks to David Cobbold and his kids. Thanks to David McMaster and the job that he gave me, and thanks to Mia, and you know, and people like Danny and Bruce Neville, who I'll talk about, you know, in a few minutes. You know, all those sorts of people. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Just, you know what I mean? Brilliant people. So, you know, Danny was like the first friend I made in there. But then Bruce came in, who I'd never met before. And Bruce Neville is one of those blokes that as soon as you meet him, you instantly like him. Do you know what I mean? So he used to come in because he was a truck driver. So he'd come in a heavy vapor as well, vaped a hell of a lot. So I used to love Bruce coming in because he'd be like, right, I need stocking up. And I'd be like, right, okay, do you know what I mean? And because I was passionate about it, I'd be like, right, this juice has come in and it's absolutely amazing, do you know what I mean? And this juice has come in and I've got the palate for stuff like that. And so I'd be straight on Bruce saying, oh, we've got this in, blah, blah, blah. And I'd always do a good sale with Bruce, and Mia liked that, and Mia loved Bruce as well, and everyone loves Bruce. But it was funny because with me, I gravitate to personalities, and personalities radiate. Well, I certainly pick up on them. And Bruce instantly was a personality that I gravitated to. You know, I felt like he was my friend instantly, and he'd probably say he was. 5 minutes after I met him, we were talking about driving down to Expo. Vape Expo is like, you know, e-cigarette exhibition sort of thing. So, you know, those two things happening at the start of me working in that shop were, you know, absolutely crucial to, again, how I view myself, how all sorts of things, because I was making friends again. Do you know what I mean? Which, again, isn't something that I did very often over the last 10 years. Well, not 10, certainly 4 or 5. So I was making friends again, and like real people as well, and people who knew nothing about me, which was interesting. There's a point. So I think the reason I probably shut myself away to an extent was not dealing with people going, oh, all right, mate, what are you doing now? Do you know what I mean? And although I had no problem with saying gardening, no matter how many times I did, people just give you that blank look back. Do you know what I mean? Like, like the situation in Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry, in the deli, where he meets the former writer from Saturday Night Live, and Larry can't hide his embarrassment at the fact that this lad who was a writer for Saturday Night Live is now selling meat and cheese to him in the deli. And, you know, the guy's like, you know, I don't need your sympathy, do you know what I mean? But, so I found that difficult. So working in the vape shop was brilliant because no one knew who I was. I could just be myself and not have people ask me about that stuff. And because I've never gone out of my way to tell people about that stuff, there was a period where I wasn't proud of it, and that might be difficult for people to hear. It's difficult for me to say now, but there was a period where I wasn't proud of it. All this stuff, do you know what I mean? This were all locked away, and if someone had have offered me a bit of cash for it, I'd have let them have it all in a heartbeat, or I'd have burned it if I needed the space. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, but that's changed now. Do you know what I mean? That's all changed. But the fact being, there was a period where, you know, I didn't tell people about this. Even if they asked me what I used to do, I'd just say something, you know, a bit misleading, just so I didn't have to talk about it. But anyway, so I was working in the shop and I loved it, and I really got on with Mia, and Mia's just such a fantastic lad. So I just love spending time in shop with Mia, and Sometimes it'd be quiet and we'd have banter. But that's what happened. That's what we turned that place into, me and Mia, and then sort of Bruce. We turned that place into, I don't know how to describe it. It was a social event every weekend in there. And sometimes you couldn't get in that shop for all people in buying stuff, do you know what I mean? And then, because that's the thing about that shop, and especially, what we do there, I'll always say we about that shop. But what we do there is we show people how to use this stuff. We don't just sell them rubbish and get them on the way. It's all about aftercare. Mia will take massive losses just to make people happy. And me and Bruce constantly for years, get new stuff in. We're like, how much is this, Mia? And he's like, I'll just do me for that. And you're like, what? And customers are like, what? Do you know what I mean? You can't sell it that cheap, but that's what keeps people coming back. Do you know what I mean? And again, it was brilliant to feel a part of something with that. And Mia really liked me, and Mia gave me confidence in myself, because I think Mia looked up to me in a lot of ways, and I looked up to Mia. And I still do in a lot, because he's a brilliant businessman and he's a brilliant gentleman, a fantastic bloke. And I think he sort of looked up to me in terms of, my ability to retain vague knowledge and give it to people in a concise, clear, eloquent, understandable way, so they could go away having what they've heard and stop smoking. And the amount of people I stopped smoking, and the amount of people who but demanded that I shake their hand after I did a sale. The amount of people who come in like, oh, my mum's, nearly 18, she smokes 60 a day and I want her to stop smoking. And I'd be like, all right, well, I'll take you through everything you need to know. I'll give you my phone number. So when you go home, if you've got any problems, ring me up. You can send me little videos if I don't know what you're talking about, but I will know what you're talking about. And we'll get it sorted for you. And, countless people I helped like that, and I loved that. I absolutely loved it, because I knew all about this stuff. I knew what it did, and I could reel it off the back of my head, without even thinking. All the terms, do you know what I mean? All the ingredients, what those ingredients did, the extent of the testing on those ingredients, which is why I find it absolutely ridiculous with the faux science that comes in the media. I'm not saying I'm a scientist, but I've read plenty of studies by people who are scientists that aren't funded by big tobacco that actually reveal the truth about these things. But anyway, I said I won't get onto this. So let's keep talking about the shop. 1 second, let me shut that. So yeah, Bruce. So, literally Bruce is, one of my best friends now. Probably got 3 best friends. David Cobbold, David McMaster and Bruce Neville. Probably, they're my 3 sort of best friends, as I'd say. But, Bruce and Danny, but, and Mia really, but they make me feel good about being me, which was always a hard currency to come across, that people who made me feel good about being me, certainly at that period. But they did, do you know what I mean? And I realised I was funny and stuff like that without even meaning to be. The amount of times I've had Bruce in tears, literally not even knowing why. I was like, what have I said? Is that funny? And Bruce is literally doubled over in corner. And I'm like, oh, I'll take over this sale then, shall I? I think he's got a problem. What can I help you with? Do you know what I mean? Same with Danny. Mine, Bruce's and Danny's banter on Saturdays in that shop. And it got to an extent where it was so much fun that when customers were coming in, we just wait 2 minutes. I'm just making a point here to this lad. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, someone's just ringing me here. Just let me. Can I get rid of that? Yeah, I can get rid of that. Sorry. Where are we going here? Oh yeah, the banter in the shop. I used to love it. I miss it now. And if I wasn't quite so busy now, I'd be around. I'd be still there, because in the winter. In the winter, when I wasn't working with Dave at all, I wouldn't work in the shop. I still just do weekends in the shop. I just have 4 months off in the winter. I loved it. But the majority of the time, I'd be in the shop because I'd just go sit with Bruce, because that's the point. So at one point, early on, when Mia asked me to do this job, I was training up on weekends with a view to running that shop or a shop for him. I realised I didn't want that pressure of running a shop, just in the same way I don't want the pressure of running my own gardening business, and that's why I work with Dave. I didn't want the pressure of running my own shop, but Bruce had been coming in so often, and I can, Bruce is, like I say, everyone loves Bruce. He's one of them people in life who is just a special person. Do you know what I mean? He'll probably find it awkward watching this, but he is, and there's a lot of people who'll back me up on that. Do you know what I mean? So maybe you won't argue with me, because Bruce helps a myriad of people. He'll help anyone, will Bruce? Absolutely anyone. An incredibly selfless, a real bloke. Just, like I say, one of my best friends. Just amazing. And our trips to expos and stuff like that. I'm not really into e-cigarette. I mean, I still use them to stop smoking cigs, but I'm not really into them like I was. I'm not passionate about it. But when expos, if expos do come back or whatever, I'll be going for a day out with Bruce and Joanne, and a few other people. Do you know what I mean? Just fantastic memories from that shop. But there was another point to this video, and I can talk about shop stories. I've got loads of shop stories, so some of them absolutely hilarious. Some of them I won't be able to repeat. Yeah, honestly. We sold stuff. We sold a lot of stuff, but we did it our way, if you know what I mean. There were no old bard in that shop. We didn't roast people, but if you came in and, do you know what I mean, you tried to act like you knew what you were talking about and you didn't, it'd be funny. Anyway, so one thing that did happen when I was working in this shop is a lad. So when I started working there, Mia used to get a lot of technical advice off a lad called Lee Richardson, a Weatherby lad. Lee used to fix stuff, if people came in and the mods had broke, Lee would have a look at it for him and Mia would give him a bit of money for sorting it out, or those sorts of things. Funnily enough, I think Lee just texted me then actually. He started coming in. And again, Lee, I instantly thought was a really nice guy, good to have in the shop. He knew what he was talking about as well, so he was good at having the shop. And me and Lee had sort of bounced stuff off each other, talking vapes, new stuff. Like I say, but really into it. Yeah, it's Lee. Really into it. And what was interesting was Lee came into the shop for quite a while, weeks, maybe months, maybe a few months, before eventually, I think Mia told him, because I told Mia about the music, Mia told him about the music. And I remember the first I knew about this was I was in the shop on a Saturday and Lee came in and I can't remember exactly what he said, but he basically walked up to me and said, Mia said that you were in the music. And I sort of went, yeah. And he didn't believe me, which got my back up a little bit. Not in like a bad way, but I could see he didn't believe me. And he was like, the music of my favourite band. I've seen them loads of times and he kept saying them. Do you know what I mean? He kept saying them and I was a bit like, come on man, start saying you. Well, do you know what I mean? Because I was stood in front of him. And I remember, I don't know, it was just really surreal. It was a really surreal moment that, because I think that's one of the first times, certainly after the band had stopped, that's one of the first times that something like that had happened. I told a couple of people about it who I'd got, reasonably close to, but none of them had ever turned around and gone, wow, you were my favourite band? But it was mad because Lee was just like, literally, you were my favourite band. I came to see all these gigs. You were like the soundtrack to my youth with all my friends. A lot of like what you guys are doing now on Twitter, really. It's like Lee was like the almost like the first taste of that for me after the band, of someone just respecting what I'd done and remembering what I'd done, because I struggled with that a lot. I often kind of suspected that people, even people close to me, had forgotten what I could do. But I guess I could forgive them for forgetting what I could do because I didn't do it for a decade. I didn't even try. Did I? So how could you blame someone for forgetting? Do you remember now? So yeah, I mean, Lee is, and so again, going back to the shop, that they were always the highlights for me. Lee had come in with Liz's missus on the Saturday, and Danny would be in. Oh, I think I missed out the part where I effectively told Mia to give Bruce the job he were going to give me. I think I've not said that. That was crucial. Yeah. So anyway, Mia wanted me to run the place full time. I said yeah initially, but then as time went on, Bruce started coming in more and more, and I knew Bruce was getting fed up with truck driving. So I started feeling Bruce out in terms of whether he'd want to run the vape shop, because I felt a sense of responsibility, because I told Mia that I would do it. Do you know what I mean? And if, like I say, if I say I'll do something, I'll kill myself to make sure I do. Sorry, it's a bad term to use. I'll, go to great lengths to make sure I follow through with my word, even if it hurts me physically, mentally, emotionally. Doesn't matter. If I've said I'll do something, you could bet your life I'll do it. So I felt a sense of responsibility. So I said to Bruce, why don't you run this place? Because Bruce is, I'm not being funny, it might sound weird, but Bruce is a nicer person than me. Bruce is much more willing to forgive people their misgivings as they are stood in front of him. Do you know what I mean? I am to a degree, but I just snap. Do you know what I mean? Not so much anymore, because I think I'm happier. I mean, even I'm a different person to, I think, when I made the first one of these. Where have I been since the music? Even the history ones, I think I'm a different person to them. I don't know, but so Bruce had that job. So Bruce, worked there as well. So, and I used to go in on Saturday with Bruce basically, and Sunday, but then just went down Saturday. But so on the Saturday, Danny Clark would come in, Lee Richardson would come in with Liz, and lots of other people popping through. That's what's brilliant about that shop, especially when good people come in, because people come in and you chat. Sometimes they only chat for 5 minutes, but it's a great chat. They take something and they go. Sometimes they come in and stay for an hour. Sometimes they come in and stay all day. Danny Clark. Honestly, every week Danny would buy a new mod. Every week. Not like little rubbish mods. Every week he'd be dropping 150 quid on a mod. And I bet he's still doing it now, Danny. Not that you'll watch this, but anyway. So yeah, it was brilliant for me, that vape shop, because it built up my confidence in myself, my ability to do things I didn't think I could do. In terms of all sorts of, working a till. I was terrified about the till. I can't do maths. Numbers mean nothing to me. Literally, numbers mean nothing to me. Someone starts giving numbers to me. What have it? Do you know what I mean? I cannot do. You give me £5. No, you give me £2.50 and ask for some change. I'll mess it up. Seriously, it's that bad. But Mia just went, look, all you do is you press that on till, and it tells you how much change. And as soon as I found that out, I were away, because I wasn't nervous anymore, because I knew that was the last thing I could mess up, was the till and the money and giving, all that sort of stuff, especially when it's someone else's business. I knew that was the last thing I could mess up. So as soon as I found out that the till would actually tell you how much change to give, I was flying. And I loved that job. And it tested me. It tested me a lot. Because as I say, Bruce has the ability to, well, everyone's got a line, but Bruce has the ability to take a lot of flack before he goes, all right, get out. Whereas my patience was a lot thinner. But through working in that shop, one of the other things it did was it taught me patience. It taught me how to deal with people and not just snap instantly if I didn't like the reaction, and I had some difficult customers over the year, and I had to stand and smile and grin and bear it until they walked out of the shop. And then literally nearly put my head through the wall, do you know what I mean? But that's growth, I suppose. Because that's the thing, when it's someone else's thing, I'm so respectful, I'll curb whatever I'm desperate to do for the sake of that relationship. And I'll always feel guilty if I let someone down. Like the other day, I was supposed to be working with Dave on Monday, but I stayed up all night writing that song. I didn't do that deliberately. It punched me in the face at about 1 o'clock in the morning. Did that the rest of that song? Well, you haven't heard that yet. But it was that good that I couldn't deny it. I couldn't stop doing it. So, as I say, my alarm went off at 5:30 in the morning, and I was still writing this tune. So I didn't do that, and I felt terrible about that. And I probably, in all the years I worked with Dave, probably only really missed like maybe 5 or 6 days through, I'm sorry mate, I can't come in, do you know what I mean? Very little. I was always really reliable, which I think what Dave likes about me. That's dwindled a bit. I'm not quite as reliable, but you know, for positive reasons. For positive reasons, I guess, is the way to look at it, and Dave knows that. So yeah, this video is 40 minutes long. This is the longest video I've made, and I realise a lot of you probably aren't going to watch till the end. Some of you will though. So if you have watched till the end, thank you. I won't talk anymore really about, because this is something that I can expand on, and I realise a lot of this hasn't really had much to do with music, but as I say, it's what have I been doing, me, yeah.